watch this close. And as we go back, now we need to make the journey back from Jericho.
Okay.
Now, Elisha actually even healed the waters in the cursed city to give those prophets something to drink. Just think about that. He said, bring me a new cruse, put salt.
It's called the grace of God, isn't it?
Oh,
the grace
yeah,
and mercy.
And they had water to drink in a cursed place. Now, he leaves Jericho, and you'll find him starting his trek back. He goes back to Bethel, the house of God. When he gets back to Bethel, it says 42 children came out and mocked him. Or more than 42, but 42 were torn in pieces by she-bears, is the way it went.
42, I always thought it was a couple of kids.
No. Listen to this. And what it's talking about, now you have to go back and find out when he starts his trek back. So he comes back and he gets to Bethel. And when he gets to Bethel, you'll find that it's called the house of God. That's what Bethel means. I'm trying to find this for you. So, because I don't want anybody to, say, well, brother, you just, no. We need to understand this. So he comes back, and you'll find that it says they begin to mock him in Bethel. And you know what they mocked him by saying? Go up, thou bald head. Go up, thou bald head. Now, the word bald head is not talking about Elisha's hair. That was some term they used when you don't have a covering. It's an insult. It means a worthless person. Because, see, he's talking, remember they kept telling him your master will be taken away from your head today. From your head today. In other words, you don't have Elijah as your covering anymore. And so they would tell him, go up, thou bald head. You know what they're saying? You go get caught up the way Elijah said he got caught up. They didn't believe him. Go on and you get caught up. They didn't believe the story. And so they're mocking him. And they're not children, like little kids. They're talking about sons of the prophets. They're talking about young prophets. They're mocking him at Bethel. The house of God had no honor for the prophets. They had no honor for the prophet. The church, the house of God, they had no honor on the prophet. And so he turned around and the Bible said he cursed them. Watch now, on one of our other briefings we covered this, in the authority or the name of Yahweh, of Jehovah, God in his system of harvest. He called forth their harvest for mocking the prophet. Wow. And when he called forth their harvest, it said 2 she-bears came out of the woods and tore 42 of them.
Man.
So you'll find as he goes along, and he's moving along, he eventually arrives back at Gilgal, the home of the prophets. And when he gets back there, they say, Master, there's a famine here. A famine. Why is there a famine in a land in the home of the prophets? Why is there a drought in a city where 50 prophets are? How come there's no honor in the church where the sons of the prophets exist? What is it that has changed the prophets, all but one, Elisha? Why have they changed? Because, watch this, it said there were prophets who ate at Jezebel's table.
Oh.
It talks about different ones that ate at her table. Now, people may say, well, that's just the false prophets. Really? Maybe so. I hope so.
Well, I'm thinking of Proverbs where Solomon, I guess it was, who said, I don't have it memorized, but if you're sitting at the king's table, it was like almost a curse if you take the food and imbibe in the delicacies of the king's table. There was a warning not to do that at the king's.
Yes.
The inference was the evil king's table.
Yes, there was.
They were doing exactly that.
Well, it's like I said, I hope not, But it does say these prophets ate at her table. Prophets did. I don't know how many of them defected. I don't know how many of them were scared. I don't know how many of them, but one thing is for sure. They got to the place where they had to see something before they would believe it. They had forgotten that. Yeah,
that's not a prophet at all. Well, that's not even a prophet who has to. I mean, I'm not saying they're not prophets. I'm just saying they were acting like non-prophet prophets. They were acting like those who are not prophets at all. They have to see it, and then they can prophesy it.
See, and here was what we were talking about in 2 Kings 2:23. And he went up from thence to Bethel after he left Jericho. And as he was going by the way, there came forth little children, the King James says little children, out of the city, and mocked him, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, like Elijah did. Like you say Elijah was called away. They didn't believe him. They still didn't believe him. And he said, and he turned back and looked on them, cursed them in the name of Yahweh. And there came 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 children of them. Jumped on 42 of them. So then it goes on over here, and watch this. If I could find this, he finally makes it back to Gilgal, and there's no food. And it's the home of the prophets. And so he says this. He says, Go gather up and put on the seething pot for everybody to eat. Elisha said, we're going to eat. So they go out and start gathering up wild vines. It says they gathered wild vines, Steve. While they were gathering up herbs and things, they scooped up a bunch of wild vines. Think about that.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, wild vines means they got off feeding on things they should not be eating. They're eating something.
They gathered that for food. They gathered that for food.
For food. And they threw it in the pot with the rest of the food. And he said when they took a bite of it, this is what they said. There's death in the pot. They were eating death. That's what happened to the prophets. They were eating death.
Sheesh.
Eating death, Steve. See, what's the first thing they thought happened at Jericho? They thought the tornado killed Elijah. All they can see is death. They're not even looking at life. They have to see before they believe. They think God is killing people. They won't quit eating this. They have no honor for him.
What do you say, Robin, to people that says, well, that was in the age of the law, in the age of grace, that could never happen to God's prophets?
Really? Really? Anybody, do you know, I don't care if you're a prophet with 4 prophetical degrees hanging off your ears for everyone to see. It don't make any difference to me. You never lose your choice. Never. Never do you lose your choice. You're not a slave. You're only a slave to God by choice, never by him being a tyrant. You could stop believing any time along the path you decide to stop. That's your prerogative. And if you decided to all of a sudden throw everything down one day and say, I don't believe any of this anymore, it's your choice. You'd be stupid if you did, but you could do it.